This is lesson 9 in mod 1. This is the first unit, so what we're going to do today is we're going to use auxiliary lines and the lesson from yesterday in order to find the value of an unknown angle. So I suggest you to use some colors in order for us to continue with the lesson. We're going to locate some z-shapes that are going to help me determine alternate interior angles. Just a quick reminder, alternate interior angles are congruent. So the z-shape in this case that I'm going to make is right here. This is my first z-shape. I need to have two parallel lines and a transversal line in order to make the Z shape. So I can locate at 75 angle right there. It's also located right here. My next Z shape, it's going to be down here, and it's a little backwards, which is okay. And I could say that angle 45 that is down here is also located up here. All right. We were looking to find the measurement of angle A, B, and C. So we can see that angle A, B, and C is made out of the sum of 75 plus 45, and this is in fact 120 degrees. All right, once again, I was looking for Z shapes that are going to help me determine, find alternate interior angles and using parallel lines in order to look for the Z shape. All right, once again, we're going to do some of this. Yesterday, we also taught you how to use colors to determine all angles that are congruent. So that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to label my congruent angles. My first round of congruent angles using yellow. So notice that we have actually two sets of parallel lines, one that go one top to each other and the other one go one side to side. So we have these two angles that are right here that should be congruent. So are these due to corresponding angles. And if you rotate your paper, you're going to notice that actually these two angles are also congruent. They're yellow. And so are these. All right, the rest of the angles are congruent to each other, so I could label it with a different color just to notice the different pattern. So I could say that these two are congruent to these, and to these. All right, so now let's go back to what we're gonna do. Notice now that all the yellow marks are congruent angles, so that means that angle 1, it's also congruent to angle 2, that is congruent to angle 3. Now we need to make sure we're using something that is going to help us determine what x and what y is going to be equals to. So in this case, I'm going to choose the information for angle 1 and angle 3 because they both have only the variable x. So I'm going to say angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. And I'm going to substitute it by 16x minus 8 and 14x plus 2. We're going to do some algebra. So I'm going to pause the video. If I had a recording. Oh, there it is. So we're going to continue with this. And we are going to now do some algebra. Let me pause the video. All right, so make some notes. I just substituted what angle 1 and what angle 3 are equivalent to the expressions that they have, and then just set them equals to each other, and then just this will help me find what the value of x is equals to. So now I've found out that x is equals to 5. I need to find what y is equals to. So in this case, I'm just going to pick either one. I'm going to say that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. Now if I use angle 1, that should be 16. Instead of x, I'm going to use 5, now that I know the value of x, minus 8, and this should be equals to angle 2, which is 4 times y plus 8. All right, so I'm going to pause the video, do the algebra, and then I'll come back. So this is so far what I have. So now you have two options. You could distribute the 4, or you can just divide it by 4, both sides. And we can say 72 divided by 4 is just 18. And we get that y plus 8 right here. Oh, it should be a y. We subtract 8 from both sides, just a little more algebra, and then you can find out that y in fact is equals to 10. All right, so make sure you are taking notes. Again, I'm pausing the video just to work on the algebra, but write down whatever you need to write down. Okay, so some vocabulary, auxiliary line. An auxiliary line is when you add or extend lines, segments, or rays. In other words, you make some lines in order for to help you find maybe an angle that you still don't know what it is. So I'm going to make my auxiliary line right through that angle in the middle. Again, auxiliary lines have to be parallel to the other parallel lines. That's the whole idea for you to be helpful. So we'll see how we can apply that. So now a good thing to do always is always to extend some of your lines right here. You may notice that it looks a little different when you extend them, so it might be a lot helpful. So I'm just going to move this up. Now I need to draw my auxiliary line, so I'll make it in blue. That has to go through actually angle 1. Angle 1 is the one in the middle, so that's the one we need to determine. So now let's look for some Z shapes. Remember, all 3 lines now are in fact parallel, so Z shapes are okay to use because I have some transversal lines. So I'm going to look for the first one, and it will be this one. Okay, so I notice that 144 is right there, but 144 is actually not there. It's somewhere over here. It's somewhere on the outside maybe, but I don't want to look at that. I don't want to look for that 144. I want to look for this angle right here because it's going to help me determine that angle, alternate interior angles. So 144, 180 minus 144. In this case, you'll get 36. So angle 36 is the angle right here. Angle 36 is the angle right here. So far we have part of angle 1. Let's do that same step for the next angle. I'm going to use a different color. You may use different highlighters, so it might be helpful. So that now this is very helpful because 56 is right there and the alternate interior angle is right here. So now we can say that angle 1 was made out of 36 plus 56 degrees. So 36 plus 56 in this case will be equals to 92 degrees. And there you go. Let's do it once again. We should be okay with extended lines. I think they're extended enough, so all I'm going to do is just going to draw my auxiliary line. It's going to go through the middle angle, which is equals to 72. Again, all of these lines now are parallel to each other, so we're good. Looking for some Z shapes. Now before I jump into drawing some Z shapes, notice that 35 is actually on the outside on the top, so I could actually find where 35 is by vertical angles. 35 right there, and I'm going to make a note, vertical angles. Repeat the same step for angle 2. Angle 2 is right here, so angle 2 is right there. Now we can see if we can actually help us determine alternate interior angles using our Z shape. And there you go. 35 is up there, and so is 35 is down here. Okay, let's do it again using a different color, and I'm gonna make a Z that it's a little backwards. So now 2 is up there, down there, and now 2 is going to be down here. That means angle 2, not 2 degrees. So we can say that 72 degrees was in fact made by 35 degrees and angle 2. So if I do some algebra right here, I subtract some 35, I'm going to get that 37 is actually what angle 2 is equals to. And there you go. So let's go to the next page. Pause the video if you need to take some notes before we move on. Here is just the name of angles, interior angles of a triangle. So I'm just going to make a note. Interior angles of a triangle, meaning A, B, and C are equals to 180. So the sum of all those 3 angles are equals to 180, and we're going to use that in the previous Z-shape strategy to help us determine the missing angle. So let's look for this. Let's look at this and let's look for this angle right here, angle 1. As you can see, you may notice that there's a nice, beautiful triangle right there. We just need to, we need some more angles, more information. So 78 is on the outside, but the supplementary angle, meaning 180 minus 78, should give us that missing angle adjacent to it. So this is 102. Right, so knowing three angles now of the triangle, we can actually determine what angle 1 is. So angle 1 is angle 1 plus 42 plus 102 should be equals to 180 using the previous definition. So we're going to do some algebra. Pause the video if you need some time. So this is going to be equals to, angle 1 should be equals to 36 degrees. And there you go. So this is 36 degrees. All right, let's move on to the next one. See parallel lines. Right away, I think of Z shapes. So let's look for these Z shapes. Before we start doing Z shapes, notice that this 94-degree angle is on the outside. So let me just determine what this supplementary angle, these two supplementary, the actual other missing angle is equals to. So we can say 180 minus 94, and that is going to give us 86. So this adjacent angle is actually equals to 86. Now we can go ahead and make some Z shapes before to help us determine what this angle is equals to. So let's look for the first Z shape. As you may notice, you may see that you can do Z shapes in two different ways. Started off with this one because I could see that 86 is right here. It really doesn't matter which way you start, you're still gonna be able to find the same answer as I am about to do. So now notice that if I'm able to determine this angle right here, I know what that angle is equals to, and I could say that the adjacent angle to that, they both have to add up to 180. So we can say 86 plus 57 should be, in this case, equals to 143. And I know the sum of all three angles have to give me 180. So far I have two of them. So I subtract 143 from 180 and I get 37 degrees. So in fact, the angle right here should be 37 degrees, but that's not what they're asking me about. They want to know what the outside angle is. But I know that angle 2 plus 37 degrees is equals to 180. So we're going to do some algebra. We're going to say that angle 2 in fact is 143. Okay, just notice there's some relation between these two things. Something that is going to come back, but just make an observation right there. Okay, but angle 2 in this case will be 143 degrees. Now let's move on to the next one. Okay, so we see some parallel lines. Again, I may need to extend them just to be a little more helpful. So we see some Z shapes, so let's make some Z shapes right away. So let's see, 146, let's see. So let's make right here. Oh, this is very helpful because I know that 46, it's down here, and it's also what angle 3 is equals to. So angle 3 in this case is 46. So let me write that down right here. All right, I have that so far. I have 94. I'm going to move this a little bit out of the way so you can see what's going on. Okay, if you can see 94, the adjacent angle to 94, right? If you add those two angles, it should give you 180. So I'm going to subtract 94 from 180, and that's going to give me 86 degrees. So this angle right here is 86 degrees. Now notice that we have almost three angles right here. These three angles, they all have to add up to 180. So I'm going to do a little more algebra. So I could say 180, I'm sorry, angle 4 plus whatever 46 and 86 is equals to, all of this has to be equals to 180. So we're going to say Doing some algebra, I'm going to say angle 4. The sum of these two has to be 132. Whoops. And I'm going to say that angle 4, in fact, doing some algebra, more algebra, it's going to be equals to 48. Okay? I'm sorry, angle 4. Angle 4 in this case is equals to 48. Okay, so angle 4 is 48 degrees. All right, and let's move on to the next and last question. So let's try to determine, first focus on that triangle inside right here. I'm going to make it in black because we almost have 3 angles. We have 2 so far, so I can say, well, 180 I'm sorry, I started off with 180, so I should say angle 5 plus 68 plus 58 should all be equals to 180, so I can go ahead 68 plus 58, and I could say that this is equals to angle 5 is equals to 54, doing some algebra. Okay, pause the video if you need to go ahead and do it step by step. So far we have this angle 54. So I'm going to say angle right here, 54. Now notice something very, very interesting. There's a big triangle, bigger, much bigger triangle out here. Okay, so far I have 54, I have angle 6, and I have this other angle right there, right? That I don't know what this angle is equals to. But if you see the adjacent angle to that red one is 93. So the sum of these two angles, the big red one and the little one next to it, have to be equals to 93. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 93. I'm going to subtract 93 from 180. And we're going to say that is 87. So that means this big, 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 big red angle is actually 87. Okay, now we're kind of gonna ignore what 58 is doing down there. I just care about the big red triangle. Now that I have almost all of my angles, I could just go ahead and say, well, if I add angle 6 plus 54 plus 87, I should be getting 180. The sum of all interior angles of a triangle are equals to 180. Do some algebra, and I could determine that angle 6 is in fact 39 degrees. Okay, so pause the video, take some notes. If you need to look back to some other notes again, just please make sure you have some colors on hand. So now let's look at exercise. The next exercise, that was not the last page. We're going to look at the degree, exercise 5, the degree measures of the angles of a triangle are represented by x, 3x, 5x, minus 54. Determine the value of x. So now they're not telling what type of triangle I have, so I'm just going to make some triangle just to have an idea how would this look like. I need to determine the value of x, so very easy. Again, the idea of the sum of all interior angles of a triangle equals to 180 is very, very helpful. So all we have to do is just add them all up and set them equals to 180. So I'm going to do some algebra. So I'm going to pause the video for a second. So far, this is what I have. I just combined like terms and started moving terms to the other side. So now I'm going to divide it by 6. And I am almost done. So 234 divided by 6, x is equals to 39 degrees in this case. All right, so let's go to the next question. It says in triangle A, B, and C, the measures of angle B is 21 less than 4 times. So be careful with this. Some word problems. So now they're not telling me exactly what type of triangle I have. So I'm just going to draw some triangle. And I'm going to label it A, B, and C. And it says angle B is 21 less than 4 times the measure of angle A. And the measure of angle C is 1 more than 5 times the measure of angle A. They're not saying much about angle A, so that's the one that I'm going to call X. So I'm going to write what angle B is now equals to. It says that it's 21 less than 4 times the measure of angle A. So in this case, it should be 4x minus 21. And angle C in this case is 1 more than 5 times the measure of angle A. Angle A was X, and it says 5 times X and 1 more. Okay, this is a plus, not an X. Again, the idea of the sum of all interior angles of a triangle comes in handy, equals to 180. So we're going to add them up and we get equals to 180. I'm going to pause the video and do some algebra. So do the same. All right, I'm almost done with this step. I'm going to divide it by 10 and I see that actually x is equals to 20. All right, 20 degrees. And that was what angle A is equals to. That was 20 degrees. In this case, angle B, I would have to substitute. And I will be getting 4 times 20 minus 21. I will be getting 59. And last but not least, this will be equals to 5 times 20 plus 1, you'll get 101. Just verify that the sum of all of these three angles are in fact 180. Okay, let's move on to the next exercise. Triangle AB and C, the measure of angle ABC is x squared. The measure of angle BCA is negative 6x plus 10 plus 100. And the last angle CAB is x plus 56. Find the measure of angle AB and C. Now, again, they're not telling me what type of triangle they want, so I'm gonna make a triangle for me to help me. Now, angle ABC, that means angle B. It's right here. It's called x squared. Angle BCA, so at C, right here, it is negative 6x plus 100. And my last angle is at A, and this would be x plus 56. All right, so we're gonna add them again. The sum of all interior angles of a triangle are equals to 180. All right, I'm gonna pause the video for a second just to do the algebra. All right, this is what I have so far. Notice that it's turned into a quadratic equation, so let's keep going. So minus 180, and you're gonna get x squared minus 5x minus 36, minus 24, I'm sorry, equals to 0. Now it is a quadratic equation, so you can use quadratic formula. You can use your quadratic strategies to solve for quadratic equation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply, I'm look for a number that multiplies to negative 24 and that adds to negative 5. And in this case, and I have to set them equals to 0. So I'm going to say that it's going to be negative 8 and positive 3, right? Multiplies to negative 24, that also adds up to give me negative 5. So now I can go ahead and make a little T-chart really quick, looking back to algebra not too long ago. Equals to 0. We set them equals to 0, and you can see that x in fact is equals to 8. And in this case, x is equals to negative 3. Notice that we're not able to, we're going to have to substitute to see which angle actually goes away. So let's substitute. All right, so if you substitute in either one of these values, so if you start off with 8, you're going to notice that angle B in this case will be 64. Angle A would also be 64, and angle C would be a different value. So if you substitute it in, what you're going to notice is they're all still going to add up to 180. If you also substitute in negative 3, they also are going to add up to 180. So although you have two different answers, because I wasn't sure, we didn't know how what type of triangle we have here, they still want us to determine what angle A, B, and C angle A, B, and C is. So I could say that angle A, B, and C in this case is represented by x squared. So I could say that if I choose 8, angle B in this case would be 8 squared will be 64. If you substitute it using -3, then you're going to see that -3 squared would be, in this case, equals to 9. So that's okay. Either answer should be fine. It just happens to work out either way. Okay, so all right, so make sure you do your homework. Please review the video and write down the steps. If you have any questions, speak to your teacher. Bye.